Hello everyone, my name is Tracy Fitch and I am the teacher of the Visually Impaired for the Marietta City Schools District. After trying distance learning for a while, I have come up with several tips and tricks with regard to how we use Zoom for distance learning that will benefit you not only for students who are visually impaired, but probably for all students that are attending your classes. So the first thing is that we want parents and the students to be aware that there are a few things that they can do on their end via Zoom that will allow them to see you, the teacher, more clearly and will give them a more beneficial experience during instruction. Okay, the first thing is super simple. It's just when they go to the top right-hand corner when they're on the Zoom screen, we want them to be aware that there is that little option between gallery view and speaker view. So when you are doing actual instruction, you want them to make sure that they know to click on speaker view so that they're seeing you while you're teaching full screen and not the gallery where they see all of their peers, smaller screens. They shouldn't have to search for you and they shouldn't have to see you smaller, subset on the screen. So we want to make sure they know to be in speaker view so that they can see you full screen. We also want to make sure that they know that they have options when you're sharing your screen. So they can fit it to the window. They can also change the percentage, but I prefer to tell students to just fit to window and allow you to enlarge it and manipulate it on your end because it gives you the control over the size that it is. If we tell them just to enlarge it to 200%, then as you move around, they may miss some things. So it's easier to just tell them to fit it to the window and then you can manipulate it on your end, which I will show you in a second. And they can also do where they do the side-by-side mode if they wanted to. So if they needed to see what you're showing them as big as possible, but they also needed to interact with maybe their peers and they want to be able to see their peers. So for instance, I was in a class last week where the teacher was doing a read aloud for a play, like they were acting out a play. So the different students in the class all had different parts, right? So we want the student to still be able to, if the child has vision, we want them to still be able to interact with the other students. So they could switch to side-by-side mode and they can still see the script full size and still see their peers as they're acting out the parts. So the next tip I'd like to share with you is in regard to lighting. You want to make sure that the light source is in front of you and not behind you. Don't worry, you don't have to buy a special light like you're making, fancy videos or anything. You just need to make sure that the light source is in front of you and not behind you. So for instance, if you have a window in your room, so I have a window and it's on my right over here, but I am facing that window. Now, when the light gets brighter in the afternoon, I have to shut my blinds and kind of minimize the amount of light because people may be able to see me, but I'm blinded a little bit. So you kind of have to work with the lighting in your room. You don't want the light to be behind you, and I will show you the difference now. This is bad. Don't do this. Either the light is going to blind the kids if it's at an angle like this, or if you're like this, your just face is in complete darkness and they can't see you at all. So no light source behind you. You want the light source in front of you so that your face is fully lit and they can see you clearly while you're talking. Okay, so the next tips that I want to share with you are in regard to the documents that you're presenting while you are sharing your screen. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. The first one is just using PowerPoint. All right, so when you're in PowerPoint, you want to make sure, now I'm on a Mac, but you could easily do this. This would be similar for a Windows computer as well. You want to make sure that you're in full screen mode. And then when you're presenting it, you don't want it this way, where it's subset on the screen, okay? If you want to be able to see the slides over here, let's say that you have a PowerPoint where you're really only doing like one slide a day, or you're skipping around on your slides, then you can always increase the magnification by just using the magnification option down on the bottom right. But really, when you're doing a PowerPoint with students, you really want to do it in presentation mode. So if you're in a PowerPoint, you're just going to hit play from start, and you're going to have it full screen. This is the best option, okay? You also, if you are doing a PowerPoint where you have multiple slides and you don't want the students to see all of the slides, let's say that you have a 20-slide PowerPoint and you really only want to show the students slides 2, 3, and 5. There's an easy way to fix that so that you can show it in presentation mode without having to worry about skipping around. And maybe you know, I only want to do slide 1 and 3 and I want to skip 2. And you're thinking, I need to have it up in this editing mode so that I can see to switch to this slide. There's an easy way to fix it if you know which slides you want to skip in advance. All you have to do is click on the slide that you want to be skipped, and then you're going to go to your slideshow options, and you're going to click hide slide. And it's going to make it this like opaque color with this, slashed out circle on it. So that way, when you go to presentation mode, it won't play that slide anymore. I don't want this hidden, so I'm going to turn that off so that it's back. And I'm going to go into presentation mode, which is play from start. And this is one of my sample PowerPoints. This sample PowerPoint is for students who need high contrast. This is typically students with cortical visual impairment, but if there is a low vision child, low vision just means they are visually impaired and still use vision for most of their tasks. But there are some low vision students who need high contrast as well, or inverted text is another way to say it. But you would know that from their IEP document. But this is just an example of that where we have the white text on the black background. So high contrast is great for these students, like I said, especially for students with cortical visual impairment. An inverted color scheme is best. Inverted just means that you have a light color against a dark background versus the typical dark lettering against a white background. You can also try red or yellow writing against a black background as well, especially for children with cortical visual impairment. So you could do red on black or yellow on black is really great for students with cortical visual impairment. You can also do high contrast for pictures too, like this. So I have my lettering in yellow and I have a picture of a duck where I've taken out the rest of the background and put him on black. If anybody would like tips on how to create images like this for students, please let me know and I will get you additional information on how I cut out the background and put them on a black background. The next tip is if you were just showing a Word doc. If you're showing a doc from Word itself, this is just a sample document that I found, like a template that I found on Word. The easiest way, as with all of the Word Office Suite programs, is down in the bottom right-hand corner. That is where your zoom feature is. So you can increase it like this and just do it until it fits the screen, okay? And then you can scroll and they can see all of the text and the images as full screen as possible, okay? So there's another option as well. So you can also go to the View ribbon and then click on Zoom, the little magnifying glass, and you have a couple options. You can just increase the zoom by 25%, or you can do page width, which will automatically zoom it to fit the full width of the page. So that's also an easy way to make sure that it's filling up the page as well. Now I'm going to show you what to do if you're using a Google slide. So same thing, we want to make sure that the PowerPoint or Google slide document that you're showing them is not subset on the screen. You don't want to have it in edit mode where they see all the slides down the side. One way to think about it is, what if you were in your physical classroom in front of your smartboard? If you were, would you show them only a third or 2/3 of what you want them to see? Would you only take up that amount of the screen? No, you wouldn't. You would fill up the whole screen, right? So you want to do the same thing when you're on the computer. So for a Google Slide document, to present it in presentation mode so that it fills up the screen, you're just going to go to the top right-hand corner and click on Present, and it'll move you to the full screen mode, okay? Here are a few tips and pointers for making accessible slides for students with visual impairments. Okay, the first tip is to make sure that you're using a sans serif font that is clean and simple. Okay, fonts commonly found pre-installed that are great to use on most online word processors as well as Word are going to be either Arial or Verdana. Those are really great ones. But there are additional fonts that are free to download that are also really great for our students. The first one is APH font, which is made by the American Printing House for the Blind. And like I said, it's a free font that you can download onto your computer, as well as dyslexic font. The original font for this one is called Dyslexia font, I think, but it costs money. Dyslexic font is the free open source version of that font. And they're all really great fonts. They're usually very clean, simple. Usually, I think the way you word it is that their bottom heavy, like the bottom of the letters are heavier than the top. And there's also the right amount of space between the letters as well. So it's a great font for that as well. Tip number 2, make sure you're not putting too much text on a slide at a time. So this is an example of what not to do. You don't want to have all of these, like in an outline view with points and subpoints with all this text on a slide. Most people, if they see a slide that's all text, if they are any level of visual learner, they're probably going to zone out a little bit when they see something like that. So you want to keep it more simple and stick to one bullet section at a time. So if you're doing something like an outline, stick to just that one section. I like to say no more than like 5 lines on a slide at a time. Also, do not over clutter your slides as well. Keep images and layouts simple. So you don't want to put, 5 to 10 images with words and everything all on one slide. That's going to be too cluttered. And students with visual impairments especially, this may affect all children, but students with visual impairments especially are going to have a hard time knowing what it is that we're asking them to look at because there's so much going on in the picture. So stick to 1 or 2 images at a time on a slide and make sure that you have ample space between them so they know this is one image and this is another image, and they can easily scan from this one to this one and see them separately as they're supposed to be seen. When you are using information that you have uploaded into your Schoology page. So when you're on Schoology, I've created a little Zoom practice on my teacher page. All right, so when you open a document on Schoology that you have uploaded for the students, and you're viewing it in this mode, okay, directly on the Schoology page, all right, you want to make sure that you don't, just like with a PowerPoint, that you don't leave it in this view. Don't leave it subset on the screen, okay? Always make it full screen, okay? The other option is that there are parts at a time that you may want them to see bigger. So I know we can write on here, but we may want to zoom in. Okay, so for instance, let's say that we really just want them to be able to look at a certain portion of the picture, and then we're going to look at 1, 2, and 3 separately. So you will probably want to use the zoom feature again, just like in the other programs, which is 180% right now, and you have your little minus and your plus. The plus will, again, increase the image. So let's say we're trying to help them find one of these words. I like to use these little search and find pages when I'm teaching magnifier skills to students. But let's say we help them find the word did because we zoomed in. They located the word did, and then we are going to move over to here. And like I said, you can keep zooming in and just use that little drag tool. So I'm basically holding down my left, you know, a left click with my mouse and dragging with my, uh, I'm holding down with my index, my right index finger, and then dragging with my right middle finger. And then you have this line here where you can do, you know, the writing or whatever it is that you want to do here, okay? And then if this is the kind of document that you could write in, then you could easily write in what you wanted to write and they could see it clearly. And then you could just erase that and zoom back out. It's not always necessary for them to see the whole page at a time. So don't worry about, okay, if I zoom in anymore, then they're not going to be able to see the whole page, okay? It's better for them to be able to see clearly what you're focused on in that particular moment than it is for them to see the whole screen at once. It depends on the activity that you're doing. But like I said, it's okay. Like if you have a problem at the top, like let's say it's a math worksheet. Let me see what else I have here. So like I said, it's okay for them to see only one portion at a time. Let's say we really just wanted them to focus on list 1 through 10. Then we could zoom, scroll over, and let them see this part here. And then when you're ready for them to see 11 through 20, you can just move it on over and let them see 11 through 20. Now, if it's an image like this, where it's a .png or a JPEG and it's just showing it on the screen, the easiest way to enlarge this one is to just hit Control and plus together. And then you'll just use scroll with your mouse like normal to show more of what you're trying to show them. Okay? And then to make it small again, it's Control minus. Okay, so it's the same thing for Pearson Realize. You can also do your Control plus and your Control minus. And with this, you're just holding them down at the same time. So you could easily increase it to 125%, and you still see all of the jars, the entire text of what it is you're trying to show them, and all of your tools. But you can even make it bigger if you need to. So we've got it to 150%. But now one of the jars is cut off. But that's no problem. We just use our mouse to scroll a little bit to the left. And now we can see the entire text of the word problem and all of the jars here on the right as well. So you can see everything. And now you may be wondering, okay, but now I can't see my tools. Very easy. Just kind of scroll over here, grab your pencil, do whatever you want to do with it, change the size, and then you're ready to go. And then you can scroll back right, scroll back left or right, make sure you're lined up, and then you're ready to write whatever it is that you need to write, or circle things, or do whatever it is that you do. So you can easily still get back to your tools and everything is filling the screen. So that's really the goal whenever we're enlarging whatever it is that we are showing to the students, is that you want to make it fit the screen as best as possible while still showing them all of the information they need to know for that moment of your instruction. They don't need to see the whole page at once. They may not need to see look back right here, but you can easily, once you're done, scroll down to show this part to them. But they don't necessarily need to see everything. You could also take this part away. This isn't necessary for what you're talking about right now. So you can easily show them as little as possible where it's filling up the screen with just the information that they need. So very easy. So anytime you don't have that little, let's go back to my folder. So anytime that you have, so like here, we've got our little magnification guide right here, okay? But technically, you can also hit Control plus and minus while you're in this document as well. So Control plus and minus is always an easy keystroke. The only time it's not going to work for you is when you're in Word. It's not going to work for you in Word. But anytime you're on the internet, Control plus and Control minus, best keystrokes to learn to help you out, okay? But if you don't have that Control plus and minus, then you can always go to your little, like I said, for Word or PowerPoint, it's always going to be in the bottom right-hand corner. In the documents that you pull up through Schoology, it's going to be in the upper left-hand corner. But always make sure you're fitting to the screen and not keeping it subset, okay? So to review, light always in front and not behind. Always fill the screen. Use Control plus and Control minus, or use your magnification plus and minus to increase the size of what it is that you're showing them. Remember that you don't have to show them the whole page at once. You just need to show them the most important information that they need to see at that point during your lesson. Okay, so now I'm going to show you what to do with a document camera. So right now I am using the document camera on Zoom. The document camera that I'm using is called Cam. I think it's the one that I got from my school, and you may be using a totally different brand. But for me, when I'm in Zoom using my document camera, I don't have options for it. So what I'm going to do is share my screen and use the extension for the OcuCam online and show you the options there. It looks like some document cameras have options while you're in Zoom, but the one that I'm using does not. So I'm going to share my screen. For the OcuCam, it is a extension. So I'm just going to open the extension. So here it is in the extension. So when I'm in the software through screen share, I have these options over here. So now I can rotate it, and I can also zoom in. So that's what I'm going to do right now. You can either do it by sliding or hitting the minus or the plus sign. I'm just going to slide like this, and you can get very, very close. But it does get a little bit grainy the closer that you get. So I'm going to slide it out just a little bit to about here. The other thing is that you can move around within the document with your mouse as long as it's within the field of view of the camera. So like this is as high as I can go, this is as low as I can go, and this is at, oops, cancel. And this is as far right as I can go. So I can almost zoom at this like halfway point, this 3.3x, I can almost see all of it. But the farther that you zoom in, the smaller the field of view of the camera. So the less that you can see by moving your mouse. But if you wanted to zoom into this level and wanted to keep it at this like 4.6x that we're at right now and wanted to show another part of the page, then you could just physically move the page, which hopefully you can see in my little minimized zoom image. You can just move the image itself so it can show another portion of the page. But like I said, it all depends on like the field of view, and basically the closer zoomed in, the closer magnified it is, the smaller the field of view. The farther out, the larger the field of view. So as long as it's within the field of view of the camera, you can move around with your mouse. If not, then you would have to physically move the page, okay? But as with anything, remember, whatever you're focusing on, just like I've said several times already, Like if we are looking at only this portion right now, and that's the most important thing that we want the kids to see right now, then we can zoom into that and show them just this. So basically, as I've said before, filling up the screen, magnify it, filling up the screen with as much as you can for what is needed in that particular moment. With something like this, or a diagram or a map or something like that, or like math problems, you can do it this way. If it is a piece of reading text where the child would need to, track and scroll down with their eyes to be able to continue reading, then you may want to have a different approach to that, because you may zoom it into where the visually impaired child needs it, but then other students may be like, I need it moved down, I need to read this portion, but you need to keep it here. So the best option, if it's like a piece of text that they need to read, like I said, a story or something like that, then you probably would like to take a screenshot of this, a scan, if it's already online and it's a digital copy, a PDF, whatever digital version of this that you can provide, then provide that to the student in advance, so that not only, if it's possible, especially with something like a reading story, they can read over it in advance, but also they can view it on perhaps their iPad and enlarge it themselves on their iPad while you're doing it on the computer screen. That way they can have Zoom up on the computer screen and be viewing the document on their iPad separately. So that's what I would recommend if you're going to be showing a piece of paper under your document camera that is more of like reading text, like lots of words that they need to read on their own. Then, like I said, I would take a scan, or if it's colorful and has photographs, then a photograph of it and provide it to the student in advance. Okay, so those are my tips and tricks and guidelines to help you know how to present things correctly to students that are in your classes. Like I said, it's most beneficial to our students with visual impairments, but will benefit all students. Thank you for watching. Bye.